Welcome to Innovating Clinical Trials, the podcast designed for clinical research professionals eager to deepen their understanding of clinical trials through concise, insightful segments. Join your hosts, Liam Eves and Ted Trafford, as they uncover the core issues in clinical research, reflect on the industry, and challenge conventional wisdom.
Okay, Ted, I've got to ask you about the post that you did on site metrics. I loved it, as always. Can you share some of your thoughts?
Yeah. So, well, thanks. First of all, it's been an interesting process. As I learn more about clinical trials, I learn more about clinical trials, and I'm at the point, and the size of the organization that I work for, Probity Medical Research, and we have the opportunity to connect with sponsors and CROs on a different level. And then they start sharing more information. They pull back the curtain a little bit and they share some really interesting information. And I remember, the first time this happened a number of years ago, where I sat down with the sponsor and they wanted to review the metrics they collected on our sites that were doing studies with them. And, the whole point of the discussion was, here's what we're observing and where can we improve? And I love that concept, but at the same time, it also alerted me to a number of things. And so, our site's really aware of the volume of metrics that sponsors are collecting about them. And then secondly, are they also aware that some of these metrics are actually incorrect?
Yeah.
Because that's what I've experienced and discovered, as I have these discussions with sponsors and CROs about the metrics of our sites. I learn that frequently there are very specific metrics that don't match the metrics that the sites have. So, we collect metrics on our sites as well. So we know exactly when they were given the green light to start the study. We know, what their targets are for enrollment in the study. And when you look and have that discussion with the sponsor, it's all of a sudden, wait a second, your activation date doesn't match our activation date. And these things matter.
Yeah.
I think this can be a really valuable discussion sponsors can have with sites, as long as sites are open to it.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, bottom line is, I think there should be transparency in clinical trials. And
how do they get that incorrect?
Okay, so let's take the activation date. So a lot of sponsors will take this to be the SIV date.
Right.
And because that's an easy date that's recorded by the CRA, SIV date is X. But a lot of things can happen between, the SIV date and when the site actually gets activated.
Sure.
Because sometimes sponsors won't give sites a green light to start recruiting or enrolling until drug is on site.
Yeah.
Or there may be delays in getting access to various portals that the sites might need, or even lab supplies. So you've got the green light to go ahead, but you don't have the lab kits on site to do screening. So there's lots of things that can create a difference. And so when sponsors are dealing with high volume of data, it's not set up to record those nuances.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah. Even the conversations, between sponsors and sites about the target enrollment numbers go awry. And you don't know what number went into the sponsor system.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's transparent. It's in the contract. Here's the target. Here's, the maximum. Here's what to do if you want to go above the maximum. Those contracts are great. But other sponsors, it's not so clear. And when I've discovered discrepancies in these target numbers in the past and then question the sponsor about it. Sometimes I'll get answers like, oh yeah, that happened at the pre-study visit when the CRA sat down with the PI and they had a conversation and the PI thought he could enroll, however many patients in the trial.
Yeah.
And the pre-study visit, honestly, is a terrible time to set that number because the sites don't have all the information they need.
That's just, I've always wondered whether it would be better to have these different snapshots in time with assumptions baked in so that you can give context. So to your point there, pre-study, like to have that conversation and to say, okay, these are the assumptions that we're working with, and therefore we think we can get 10 patients. And then you find out a whole load of other information and you say, well, actually now, because 3 months later we've started, it's actually 6 months because we've 6 patients we're going to get because we've got this additional information. And everything, like, there's not a central like rule book in a lot of ways, right? The protocol, obviously, hopefully being that, but things change. Yet, like you say, these metrics don't reflect the nuances of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So it's something I actually wrote about really recently.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's a post coming out later this week.
Ooh.
Where I'm actually outlining the steps that, or all the information that the site needs in order to actually accurately determine, this is what we think we can enroll in this particular study. And the list is actually quite lengthy, and I guarantee you sponsors won't have it at the pre-study visit.
You could almost like graph that out, right? Couldn't you? You could say, well, actually this information, 70% of the information is available, but from like a weighting standpoint, the information, I'm just making this up, but the information that we get later is actually more valuable and swings more. So I bet there's some way of like graphically showing that would be really interesting. Like here's feasibility, here's your SIV, here's your first patient, here's your 3 months into your study. That would plot out really interesting.
It would, for sure. And to be able to measure things to go back and take a look at the enrollment period in a study and actually measure out the steps that took place when they happened and then what impact they had on the whole enrollment process.
Yeah. Does that recruitment line still look like a straight line? A straight line?
Yeah. Never. Never.
It always blows my mind. It blows my mind.